All right, let's jump right into this. We are tackling a truly fascinating, absolutely foundational topic in engineering today: energy density in electrostatic fields. Now, to make sure we're completely rock solid on the facts, all the formulas and examples we're using today are pulled straight from section 4.10 of Matthew Sadiku's definitive text, Elements of Electromagnetisms. So, you know that feeling when you're staring at a problem and it just feels totally disconnected from reality? That's a huge pain point a lot of engineering students hit with this topic. You look at a vacuum, literally empty space, and you're told, hey, there's a massive amount of energy stored right there in the electric field. But how do you even visualize that? And more importantly, how are you supposed to mathematically calculate the invisible energy hiding in what looks like absolutely nothing? It feels incredibly abstract, right? Well, here is my promise to you for this explainer. By the time we wrap up, you're going to perfectly execute these calculations. You're going to actually understand the physical reality behind the math. And absolutely crucial here, we are going to make sure you avoid a classic textbook pitfall that, let's be real, ruins countless exam scores. Today, we're taking the invisible and making it visible. Okay, let's start with the core concept directly from the source text. We're talking about electrostatic energy density. You'll usually see this denoted by a lowercase w sub e. By definition, this is the electrical potential energy stored per unit volume in an electrostatic field. And because we're looking at energy divided by a physical volume, the units are joules per cubic meter. Now, I know abstract definitions can be a bit slippery to hold on to, so I want to give you a never-forget visual analogy. When you think of an electric field, our variable E, I want you to imagine invisible, compressed mechanical springs. Think about it. Just as you have to do physical work to compress a heavy steel coil which packs mechanical potential energy into a tight little volume, an electrostatic field packs electrical potential energy into a specific volume of space. The stronger the electric field, the tighter those invisible springs are squeezed together, and the more energy is densely packed into that specific region. As you'll see here, this abstract representation brilliantly illustrates the idea. Imagine these swirling, intersecting lines as our field lines moving through space. Notice how, in the spots where these lines converge and get really tight, it's just like those mechanical springs being squeezed together under heavy pressure. That tightness, that actual compression in the field, is exactly where your electrostatic energy is stored. It isn't just empty space, it's a volume loaded with coiled potential, just waiting to be released. Let's move over to the math and see how this all builds step by step. We're starting with equation 4.95 from Sadiku. The total electrostatic energy, capital W sub E, is equal to 1/2 the volume integral of the dot product of D and E. Here, D is your electric flux density, and E is your electric field. Now watch how nicely this simplifies. For step 2, we just substitute D with epsilon naught times E, where epsilon naught is the permittivity of free space. That gives us our next equation, 4.96. Total energy equals the integral of 1/2 epsilon naught E squared over the given volume. And from that total energy equation, we can easily extract the energy density itself, our lowercase w sub e. As shown in equation 4.97, there are 3 algebraically equivalent ways to write this out, entirely depending on which variables you're actually handed in a problem. You could use 1/2 d dot e, or maybe 1/2 epsilon naught e squared, or even d squared over 2 epsilon naught. Pick your favorite because they all describe the exact same physical reality, those tightly compressed springs of energy sitting in a given volume. Now, you might be thinking, those integral formulas are great if I have a smooth, continuous volume of charge. But what if the system isn't continuous? What if you're dealing with discrete, individual point charges just floating around in space? Well, you obviously can't integrate over a smooth volume then. Instead, you have to systematically sum up the energy of those individual charges interacting with one another. Let's actually do this with a practical walkthrough problem so you can see it in action. This is example 4.14 straight from the text. We've got a system of 3 specific point charges. Q1 is -1 nanocoulomb, sitting right at the origin, 0, 0, 0. Q2 is 4 nanocoulombs up at 0, 0, 1. And Q3 is 3 nanocoulombs over at 1, 0, 0. Our objective here, find the total energy stored in this entire system. Now, Sadiku gives us 2 methods to solve this. Method 1 is by far the most physically intuitive way to think about it. We are going to build this system from scratch, charge by charge. Imagine the universe is completely, totally empty. The total work, W, is simply going to be the work required to bring in the first charge, plus the work to bring in the second, plus the third. Okay, so step 1, we bring Q1 in from infinity. Since the universe is completely empty right now, there is no existing electric field pushing against us. 0 resistance. Therefore, W1 is 0. It takes no work at all. Step 2. We bring in Q2. But now Q1 is already sitting there, creating a field, which means we have to do work against Q1's field to put Q2 in place. And finally, step 3, we bring in Q3. Now we're doing work against the established field of both Q1 and Q2. I love this because it brilliantly illustrates how the math directly mimics physical reality. Check out this expanded equation. The total work is 0 for that first charge, plus Q2 multiplied by V21, which is just the potential at position 2 caused by charge 1. Then we add Q3 multiplied by the sum of V31 and V32, and those are the potentials at position 3 caused by charges 1 and 2 respectively. To actually crunch those numbers, though, we have to reach back to a foundational formula from earlier in the text. You remember this one? The potential V at any point is equal to the source charge Q divided by 4 pi epsilon naught times R, where R is just the physical distance between the charges. So before we plug everything into our big equation, we need to quickly figure out those distances, our R denominators. Looking at our 3D coordinates, the distance from Q1 at the origin to Q2 on the z-axis is exactly 1 meter. The distance from Q1 to Q3 on the x-axis, also 1 meter. But the distance from Q2 to Q3, we just use a quick Pythagorean theorem across those coordinates, and that gives us the square root of 2 meters. Now, what's really cool here is how beautifully the math cleans itself up. If you factor out the constant, 1 over 4 pi epsilon naught from every single term, look what you're left with inside the brackets. Just a really clean set of fractions. It's simply the product of the interacting charge pairs divided by the physical distance between them. So Q1 times Q2 over 1 plus Q1 times Q3 over 1 plus Q2 times Q3 over the square root of 2. When you plug those nanocoulomb values into our newly simplified equation, and definitely remember to keep that negative sign for Q1, the final calculated energy for this entire assembled system is exactly 13.37 nanojoules. Boom! That is the precise amount of energy tightly packed into our invisible springs for this specific configuration. But wait a second. Building a system charge by charge is fine for 3 charges, but it's pretty slow. What if you have 10 charges or 100? That's where Sadiku offers method 2, the simultaneous system formula. It is way faster, for sure. But, and this is a massive but, it comes with a hidden danger that trims up a lot of people. Here is the method 2 formula. The total work W equals 1/2 times the sum from K equals 1 to 3 of Q sub K times V sub K. In this formula, V sub K represents the total potential at point K due to literally all the other charges in the system. You just calculate the potential at each point, multiply by the charge sitting there, and sum them all up in one go. Okay, red flashing lights here. This is the gotcha. I absolutely cannot stress this enough. I want you to mentally highlight that 1/2 multiplier right now. The most common mistake engineers make when they're rushing through an exam or a design problem is just summing up QK times VK and totally dropping the 1/2. And here's why it's so important. If you drop that 1/2, you are going to perfectly double count the energy of every single interacting pair. Think about it physically. When you calculate Q1 times V1, you are including the interaction between charge 1 and charge 2. But when you move down the line and calculate Q2 times V2, you are including the interaction between charge 2 and charge 1 all over again. It's the exact same energy, counted twice. That 1/2 isn't just a random fraction. It's the mathematical correction for that physical double counting. Okay, let's lock this all in with a rapid-fire survival guide recap. Number 1, your core equation for electrostatic energy density is lowercase we equals 1/2 epsilon naught e squared. Number 2, anytime you get stuck, always visualize electric fields as those invisible compressed springs packing potential energy into a volume of space. And number 3, our big pitfall, never ever forget the 1/2 in the discrete sum formula, or you will absolutely double count your system's energy. And again, all of these formulas, these step-by-step proofs, and the underlying logic are drawn directly from Matthew Sadiku's Elements of Electromagnetics. It really is the definitive guide for mastering these foundational proofs, and I highly recommend keeping a copy handy on your desk. Well, I really hope this explainer brought some clarity to the invisible world of electrostatic energy. If this helped you dodge that nasty 1/2 gotcha, hit subscribe for more of these engineering survival guides. I want to leave you with a question today. How will you use these energy density calculations to optimize your next engineering design? Think about those compressed springs. Until next time, keep learning, keep building, and thank you so much for joining this explainer.